we sit here every day on these airwaves, and we hopefully, challenge people to pick up a baton and do something with it. Yesterday, we had Dr. Kamara Jones on, and she said, her job is to build a barrel of batons and then just hand them out. And then hopefully whoever she's handing them out to will build their own barrel of batons. And we just had Bruce Marks on from NACA, because I want to inspire people to think about their neighborhoods differently, not as just, places to run away from, but as spaces that can be built and imagined into the kind of places we want. And a couple of weeks ago, we had Reverend Dr. Buster Soaries on, who actually did it in Somerset, actually created affordable housing and then condos. And then, just there were stepping stones to build the kind of world. And it still is there, because I've been there right before the pandemic, and it was amazing. And that's 10 years out, right? So moving forward, I think people listening, we all, even those of us who've come from hard scrabble places, we need to start to look at going back and imagining, what that should be. But at the center of it should be some sort of faith or some sort of organization that will help foment that. But
if I can just jump in here and tell you that that's been, some of the criticism. We can debate whether warranted or unwarranted by some of the stalwart institutions, social justice institutions of some of the current movements, that they're not centered in something that is greater than themselves. That that what the movements of, say, the SCLC, beginning there, that movement was centered and based in a firmly rooted faith foundation. That we were doing the work, that the SCLC, Operation Breadbasket, was doing the work that God desired, that God intended. And that if you aren't rooted in something greater than yourself, then you're going to get lost trying to figure out what exactly you're here to do, because you'll get taken by the lights, the blitz, the glam, and all of that, and think it's all about you rather than what God desires.
Dr. Starsky, I know you agree, which is why you rolled up your sleeves and you're doing the work that you're doing. But now, I listened to the State of the Union. There's this convergence of faith and politics, and, it can get very muddy. But I think if we just focus on community and then forcing the levers of power to walk in lockstep with what the community envisions for itself. And every community is different, they don't all, but I think at the core, we all have similar desires, safety, we want to live nice, want to have good schools and all the other things that anybody else would want, right? Yeah. What's missing from this, and what can people who are listening do more of to realize that goal?
I mean, I'll just note, I agree here. And I think the concept of community can be greater, can be the transcendent thing that holds you accountable. If you don't identify as a person of faith. But I think a serious commitment to that is lived out through ritual and through some kind of system of accountability, collective accountability is really important. I think those are elements beyond the book. These are elements that have been critical for the Black church. And I think another critical element of that is autonomous space for visioning, and community can reflect that as well. So what does it mean that the Black church has been a space where there was the capacity to own property that could not be interrogated in the same way by the state? There was capacity in the collective to develop a vision and a direction. Will movements have that? Becomes part of the question and the challenge as well. Even if you don't understand it in the same way that we've understood faith, if you had to have something that you're holding yourself accountable to, you got to have some consistent form of connection, and there has to be some autonomous space whereby you can develop your own vision to speak into these systems together. I think those are some elements that are missing in other movements.
I agree with you. I think one of our greatest challenges today, however, is how do we define the community? So, when we reflect upon the movements of the past, it was more easily and more readily defined. Black people all were part of this same grouping. It didn't matter whether you were college educated or, graduate school educated, or you were working as a, term blue collar worker. you all were bound together by, we all were bound together by our oppressive state, at the hands of a white supremacist nation. What then happened though with, integration, with affirmative action, civil rights, was that you had some Black persons who could, plead the geographical community and then be other. And so you have that divide. It used to be that the church was the center, and that was a place where you could define community. But what we've had over the course of the last 30, 40, 50 years is in some ways a breakdown, a separation from the church by many people of color, many Black persons. The struggle to find out why is that. Is it because they can get their faith and their religion elsewhere? Is it because they don't need, because of affirmative action, they don't need to feel that they are connected to this body? Like, we need to unpack that, but this whole notion of what is community and how we define it so then we can act in unity, that question first has to be answered.